Just like everyone else, I was blown away by how amazing Arcane is. But honestly, I had very low expectations for this show. I didn't even watch it until Act 2 was out, and it took a friend's and Daniel Green's recommendation for me to finally give it a go. But why was I so opposed to watching this masterpiece? Because it's a game adaptation? No, that wasn't it. I mean, I loved Castlevania, I really enjoyed The Witcher, which is technically a book but also a game, so yeah. And I even liked Dota Dragon's Blood. So no, the game adaptation part was not the issue. It was Jinx. I love what they did with Jinx in Arcane, but I absolutely didn't expect this masterpiece of character writing. But why? A while back I played League of Legends, but I totally suck. Which is why after dragging down team after team, I concluded that for everyone's sake, I should just stick to enjoying the game cinematics. Like Jinx's music video to the song Get Jinxed, for example. Once I saw Jinx in a preview for Arcane, I was reminded of that music video. And there is someone else I keep having to think of when I see this music video. And that's Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Why is that a problem? Well, to put it frankly, I'm not a huge fan of her character in Suicide Squad and much less in Birds of Prey. Whatever you think of either Jinx or Harley Quinn, you gotta admit that these two share common traits. The most obvious, they're crazy, violent, and an absolute wildcard. But one of them is exceptionally well written, with so many layers to a character, and the other one is Harley Quinn. So before I can join the choir and sing praise to Jinx, I need to explain why Margot Robbie's version of Harley Quinn didn't cut it for me. Frankly, this character and her actress had a lot of potential, but in the end it was utterly wasted due to bad writing. I'm sorry if you liked Suicide Squad, but this movie has gotta be the best worst example on how not to handle exposition. Cause what do they do in Suicide Squad with Harley Quinn's backstory? They hand it to us on a silver platter. And I don't mean this in a good way. Cause what's on that platter is being force-fed to the audience with a 5-minute long exposition dump. I know show don't tell is old. You probably can't hear it anymore. But it's still the gold standard for a reason. So yeah, this terrible way of telling Harley Quinn's backstory doesn't give the audience the chance to connect to her character or to learn to understand her. My biggest issue with Harley Quinn is that she's supposed to be sexy, fun, crazy. But only that. We don't get to see a lot of her downsides, and that makes her character rather unrelatable. They did try to show more of the bad parts in Birds of Prey, but at the same time they wanted to be the next Deadpool, so that concept went down the drain fast. In Birds of Prey, the Joker breaks up with Harley, and cause she can't deal with the breakup like a normal person, she gets hammered, breaks a guy's legs, pukes in some girl's purse. Actually, up to that part, it's almost normal. But then she goes and blows up the chemical plant where she and the Joker were having a romantic hot tub experience. You don't need to be an environmental scientist to know that this is bad for everyone and everything living in close proximity. Which doesn't need to be that close to be harmful in this case. But anyway, the movie glosses over the consequences of this explosion entirely. Almost entirely. Consequences is a general problem with Harley's character. She does so much shit, but gets away with pretty much everything only due to sheer dumb luck. And I'm supposed to root for her? Because she's a funny, crazy person? Sorry, but...
That's not good enough!
Any well-written character has a clearly defined want, need, lie, and ghost. So what about Harley Quinn? Well, her want? Either be with the Joker or, I don't know, eat a sandwich? Her need? That one's actually not that bad in Birds of Prey. She has got to get over the Joker and get her shit together, unless she wants to keep having the entire town out to kill her for grievances. Her lie? That she needs her pudding? I don't know, that's all I could come up with. And her ghost, which is a traumatic event in the past that makes her believe the lie? Well, that he tortured her and turned her into a crazy person? I have no clue since her backstory was so messy. So yeah, Harley's want, need, lie, and ghost are at best generic and at worst non-existent. That can be okay for a side character, but a protagonist?
That's not good enough!
Whew, I could go on and on about why Harley's a decent side character but a terrible protagonist. Birds of Prey had more problems than just Harley Quinn, but the way I see it, basing the movie around her was a terrible choice. At least the way they did it. And that's what I was afraid would be what they were going to do with Jinx and Arcane. But oh boy was I wrong. A few months ago I made a video on how to write a fall arc. And I used Azula from Avatar The Last Airbender as an example on how to do it well. If I were to make that video now, I'd be torn which of these two was the better example, Jinx or Azula. As I mentioned in that video on Azula, there are a few essentials for a fall arc. Again, of course, Want, Need, Lie, and Ghost are essential for the character you want to base the fall arc around. But those 4 are not the only important character traits. Let me demonstrate on Jinx what I mean. What she wants more than anything is to be with her sister and be seen as an equal by her. Her biggest weakness is her dependence on Vi and her abandonment issues. Yeah, weakness is another important quality that has to be defined about a character. And those 2 are not Jinx's only weaknesses. She's not as physically strong or fast as her friends who are older than her. And she has terrible luck. The show also does an incredible job at establishing that she's emotionally unstable. Whenever she's at a breaking point, she gets hysterical. I mean, who can blame her? For a kid, she's had way too many traumatizing experiences. Losing her parents at such a young age is probably what triggered her abandonment issues. In the time following that trauma, she clung to her sister Vi, who always looked out for her. And then she loses her family again. But this time, it's partially her fault. And Vi screams that in her face and leaves after dropping that bombshell. Just like Powder dropped a bomb she shouldn't have. When Vi doesn't return after this, Powder starts to believe in the lie that she's been abandoned because she wasn't strong enough. That's why she sticks with Silco, who promises to make her strong and show them all. He nurtures her strengths, like her abilities as an engineer and her strength when it comes to overcoming trauma. In his own twisted way, Silco actually does deliver on his promise to make her stronger. Once her sister returns years later, Jinx desperately wants Vi to prove to her that she's on her side, and that she would always take her side over anyone else's. But because the 2 sisters have both changed in their time apart, that's not as easy as it was when they were kids. That's why seeing Vi with Caitlyn makes Powder feel like she's been replaced. Caitlyn even has blue hair and carries a gun as a weapon, which is another great subtle detail the show included. That feeling that she was replaced drives Jinx to more and more extremes to try and get Vi to prove this fear of hers wrong. Her desperation drives her so far that she wants Vi to kill Caitlyn to prove that she'll choose Powder over her. But in the end, it is Jinx who has to pull the trigger on Silco to save Vi. With his dying breath, Silco reassures her that he would never have abandoned her, and that he sees Jinx as perfect. He treats her more like an equal than her sister ever did. That's why she ends up choosing to be Jinx instead of going back to being Powder, which is what Vi hoped would happen once Silco was finally dead. Since there were 2 seats on the table and Vi's sister chose to sit in Jinx's seat after Silco died, that suggests that the only way she would have ended up in Powder's seat was if Silco had succeeded in killing Vi. Meaning that there was nothing but tragedy waiting for her at this dinner table. Either way, she would have lost a person who supported her. If Vi died and she reverted back to Powder, then she'd have lost Silco's support. But now that Silco is dead, she decides to become Jinx and finally loses Vi's support for good. Either way, she was going to lose the one good thing in her life, which is the final essential thing for a fall arc. Either Powder would have lost Vi or Jinx would have lost Silco. That's why Jinx's fall arc hit so hard. There was no way this would have turned out well for her. And playing the song What Could Have Been in the background was a stroke of genius. There are so many layers to the song's meaning. It could refer to what could have been if Vi had died instead of Silco. What could have been if Silco never killed Vander? Or what could have been if it really come to the peace agreement? So yeah, just like Harley, Jinx does a lot of shit too cause she feels like it. She kills and hurts others and can shrug it off with a laugh. But at least there are always harsh consequences waiting for her just around the corner. And I love how they showed that Jinx is a liability even to the people who are on her side. That the chaotic character is not necessarily the best to have in your party. And I love that they included that realism in Arcane. That makes Jinx's character still fun and less predictable, but it makes her and the entire story feel grounded. Honestly, I don't particularly like Jinx, but I understand her. I can empathize with her abandonment issues very well, but even if I couldn't, I'd still understand why she turned out that way. Because the writers of Arcane showed me everything I needed to know about her and turned her into such a fascinating character. So what did you think of Jinx? Did you enjoy watching her develop on screen just as much as I did? And maybe you felt like I've been way too harsh on Harley Quinn and that there is stuff that I just failed to see in her. I'd love to chat about those characters in the comments, though I'd prefer to talk about Jinx. If you enjoy character deep dives like this one, please let me know by leaving a like or subscribe to the channel if you want to get notified once I post a new video. And thank you so much for watching this video. Anyway, farewell.